Alright guys, hello and welcome back to my channel. This is Annalise Velez and it is a story time. So many of you don't know this, but I actually have a 21-year-old son who has autism. He is what they call high functioning, and I remember there being a time when he was not considered very high functioning. So if you're a parent of an autistic child, you know that from the very beginning, your child will begin getting labels from professionals and non-professionals, and everyone will come out of the woodworks to tell you what your child is. My experience with Caesar was that he was born and he was developing at a very normal rate. He had really good eye contact. He was very cognizant of things that were going on around him. He was very smart, made good eye contact, and he was already speaking 2 languages before, sorry, there's a car alarm going off. He was already speaking English and Spanish before his first birthday. A little bit before his first birthday, he got sick and I took him to a different doctor because his doctor wasn't available. She was on vacation, and this lady, I forget her name now, Dr. Bopholm, I don't know, she was some lady in Richmond Hill, New York, saw my son and told me that he needed to get his MMR vaccination. And at the time I told her, no, he doesn't, he already has it, he's up to date with his doctor. And she was like, well, you're better safe than sorry, you should just do it anyway. Me being young and a little bit at times influential, or like just didn't always want to be combative, because I'm a very combative and strong-willed person who I'm constantly arguing with people. I decided to just let her do it. So she went and she put the shot in his leg. That didn't work. All the immunization kind of came out of his skin, and then she went and put it in his other leg. It was pretty traumatic for me, to say the least. And I would say about 2 weeks later, I was at school. My mom used to help me with my son, and my mother called me hysterical that Caesar was having a fever and what looked like a seizure, and everybody ran to the hospital with him, and that was the beginning of our autistic journey. To be totally honest, I truly strongly believe that, even before I knew that vaccines had any role to play with anything, but I did find that to be very strange. Now, the rest of our life would be from 0 to about 7 years of age. My son being diagnosed with ED, that's emotionally disturbed, R for retarded. I think he had a speech impairment also as a diagnosis. I had him get kicked out of tons and tons of daycares, schools, and then I had an elementary school that I literally handed my son's IEP to the principal, and he never read it. And then he didn't get my son the speech, the OT, the occupational therapy, and the counseling he was supposed to have, up until the point where we were having a meeting with me, always me, basically by myself. I don't look 40 right now, and you can imagine when I was 19, 20 years old what I look like, and I never got any respect from anyone. Like, I was just treated like a dummy or a little girl with a baby, when I was a very strong-willed, smart mom. And I was grossly underestimated. And I fought for my son, and I ended up getting him a Nickerson letter, and I ended up getting him into a charter school that I really liked and that he accelerated at, achieved a lot of things, and then he went on and got his Regents diploma and he started college. Now, we are going through another rough patch now, but I just wanted to tell you guys about this brand new thing that I never knew about. Now, my son probably would not have fallen into the category of children that need this type of therapy or that might benefit from this type of therapy. It is called Spell to Communicate, or S2C, or RPM. I forget what RPM stands for, but this is absolutely amazing. So I don't know if I just mentioned it, but my son was non-verbal until he was about 4 or 5 years old, meaning no words, and everyone told me he was never going to speak. Now, I was fortunate enough that my son came around and eventually did speak and does read and does write and does all those things, but there are plenty of parents living in this world of autism that never get to hear their child speak their thoughts and speak their feelings, and it's a really sad world to live in. Anyway, fast forward to 2022, And I haven't been in the field of education in years, and I really haven't been around autistic children besides my own son in a really, really long time. And I got a phone call from a friend who told me that he knew a dad that really needed help. And I was like, my friend works in security, so I was like, how could I help this man? I'm not going to be able to secure anything. For a while I thought that his daughter had security because maybe the dad's life was in danger. He owns a company that's a little dangerous. It's a free speech company, and I was like, I don't want to be in a dangerous situation. And then my friend explained, no, she's an autistic girl who's nonverbal, and the dad needs help. And I was like, I don't know if I could be of any help, but I'm going to go out there. Anyway, fast forward 1 month later, this child having OCD and autism has not really been able to verbalize anything to any of us. She hasn't been able to say, hey, I want to go to the bathroom, or I feel really cold, or I would like to leave the restaurant now. All she does is say things like, I want a cashew nut, I want a nut, I want a cashew nut, can I have a carrot, can I have a carrot? When I tell you she says this all day and all night, this is all she says. It's rare that we would ever hear anything else out of her. And for a while, I spent time trying to get one of these spell to communicate or RPM therapists that the dad wanted for her to come to New York. There aren't a lot of people here. So if you're out there and you're a speech therapist and you are against this, you need to be listening to this, okay? Because this is another skill you could have underneath your belt, and you could be helping children even if it's against the ABA community or against the speech therapy community. This RPM, or spell to communicate, is amazing. I'm holding a piece of paper here. Okay, I'm gonna try to share some videos, so give me a second about what this therapy session looks like. And then I'm going to tell you what my experience was like. I'm not gonna share the child's name or the dad's name or any of the people's names in this, but I will share some videos of people who are doing the RPM therapy that you can find on YouTube. And I am going to share the letter that this little girl wrote to all of us while we were in the middle of a session, okay? Now, mind you, I don't want to get emotional, but it's a tearjerker, because you have to understand that we've been caring for this little girl and we don't know if we're doing anything right. You know, we can't be sure. We can't be sure if we're doing anything right. We can't ask the dad, we can't ask her, and all we do is our best. And so for the first time in almost 30 days, we sat down with this therapist that does spell to communicate RPM, and this is the first time that the little girl writes that she would like to trust more now, and that she's sorry that she has made it so hard. She's talking about her OCD. It makes me so hard to manage my stems. Stems are things that autistic children do to deal with their body irregularities. They pace, they repeat themselves, they hit themselves sometimes. That's not what she did, but it is what it is. I'm not really playing my role. Then she turns to the lady and says, he is a really nice man. Mom, not so much. Now, none of us understood what this was, but apparently the little girl already had a relationship with a therapist, and he happened to be the lady's husband. And I guess had tried to take care of the little girl, and the little girl's mom didn't think it was a good idea. Little girl writes, help my mom end this madness. Mom's not so trusting of men. Mom's not so trusting now. But really, RPM is my strength. This is the little girl telling this speech therapist, who I think does either RPM or spell to communicate. There's a little variation on how these therapies are administered. But anyway, really, RPM is my strength. Mentally, not so much. Not so strong. Not so strong on the outside. And then she turns to me and she writes, Dear Annalise, I love you so much. Help me. Oh, I can't read all the handwriting. Help me to make a relationship with her as a friend. And then we go on to ask her questions about her OCD, because her OCD is really prohibiting her from doing things that she really wants to do. And RPM is not, again, something that we've been able to get her very consistently, because she this is not a service that exists a lot in New York. Anyway, so we asked her about why she's always asking for cashew nuts or carrots or cheese. She loves like halloumi cheese and all these, like brie cheese and all these things. She really does love it, and she really will eat it every single time you give it to her, but she doesn't want it. So here's what she says. It's rotten. There is no truth. Eating this makes me lose my heavenly energy. It's just crazy. Then she says to the lady, I'm not going to say the lady's name. Then she says, you are strong, blank. You are strong, blank. And she says that she would like to... then we asked her about Halloween, because there was a lot of controversy as to what she wanted for Halloween. Again, we spent 30 days with her. It was in the month of October. We wanted her to feel like she was a part of the group, and so we kept asking her what she wanted to be, and she kept saying pumpkin. And we didn't know if she meant carve pumpkins or dress up as a pumpkin. So we decided to take the opportunity to ask her this question now that we kind of had like this liaison between us, the RPM therapist. And she said, in the Halloween, help me calm down in the room. Then she goes back again to the therapist and says, you are strong. Strong energy. Steer me to your solid strength. I'm not strong. The horrible OCD stops me. And then she goes on to tell the therapist, which the therapist didn't write this down, but the therapist went on to say, the little girl was spelling, and the little girl said, the moms are strong. They should be taken out to dinner. And it was just absolutely magical to watch this little girl that is stuck inside of this body given to her upon her arrival on Earth, and she's literally in there. So if you have an autistic child who is nonverbal, and even if you cannot afford Spell to Communicate or RPM, or even if you haven't heard of it, look it up. Spell to Communicate, RPM. It is the most amazing thing I have ever seen. And if you have a nonverbal child and you have been thinking to yourself, this is like a vegetable walking around in a body or a zombie, we are wrong. We are deathly wrong. These are not zombies. These are people with deep feelings and huge capabilities. So, again, if you have a child with autism who is absolutely nonverbal, I would definitely recommend penny pinching and paying for this session of this therapy, learning as much as you possibly can and trying it at home for yourselves, because you might actually discover that the child sitting next to you is actually a full-fledged human stuck inside of that body. This is a personal video of my own. Sorry that I cried, but it was very emotional, and I think that it's important for people to know that there are other things available to them. I know that as a parent of an autistic child, we are literally willing to do anything, and this is 100% worth trying. I would not have believed this myself. I had never seen this child write anything or read anything, and within a few months she became a different person. And just before I was let go, a story for a different day, I was able to see this, and I thank God that I did. So I hope that this helps other parents with autistic children. Please look into it. It's called RPM or S2C, Spell to Communicate, and watch the videos. They're a little hard to understand without any instructions, but if you have some questions, I'm here to answer some of them. I'm not an expert. I have not been personally trained in RPM or Spell to Communicate, but I will say that the lesson that I did have for the 2 hours that we were there is, I think, enough to help someone at least get the ball rolling and have a little bit of confidence in this. I also want to recommend a book that helped me when I really didn't know a lot about the little girl. Like, I know a lot about autism, and I'm very, very well aware, but I also recommend that you read this book called Underestimated. It's by a boy who was already 18 or 19 years old, and he was full-blown autistic with a ton of stems that were holding him back, and his parents just happened to stumble on Spell to Communicate or RPM, and this boy ends up helping his parents write this book about him and their experience from absolutely no words to going to college. So if you want to pick up a book and you like reading, definitely pick up this book. I will share it on the screen somewhere here so you guys can see the cover. It was absolutely inspirational to read that it is a true story. And I had my own little true story and I got to see what that was truly like in person, and it was amazing. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. Love you for now. Ciao, bacalao.